Imagine this. A man, covered head to toe in brutal injuries, is about to be executed by hanging. But then, he finds out his wife and daughter are also marked for death. And something snaps. This guy, with a surge of raw, primal survival instinct, is not going down without a fight. His hands are tied tight, he's dangling in the air. But he digs deep, finding a strength you wouldn't believe possible. He contorts his body, straining, dislocating his own joints just to get his hands above his head. Somehow, impossibly, he grabs the rope, breaks free, and goes on the run. All he cares about in that moment is finding out if his wife and daughter are still alive. This man's name is Dong Cheol, and he's no ordinary guy. He's a freaking elite special operative from North Korea. These guys are legendary, rumored to be able to take on 100 men single-handedly. And Dong Cheol? He's the ace of the unit, the best of the best. This unit handles the super-sensitive stuff for the government, the stuff they can't admit to. Covert ops, intel gathering, the whole shebang. But here's the kicker. When Dong Cheol comes back from his latest mission, he's arrested by his own government and accused of being a traitor. They're planning to execute him. Turns out, while he was gone, there was a power shift in North Korea. A new president took over and, to consolidate his power and eliminate potential threats, he decided to secretly eliminate all the operatives who served the previous leader. That's why all these North Korean defectors were suddenly popping up in South Korea. Dong Cheol, loyal to a fault, had no intention of defecting. He was willing to be a political sacrifice. But what he couldn't accept was that his wife and daughter were also labeled as traitors and targeted by the government. That's when he decided he wasn't going to die quietly. He had to escape the military base, find his family, make sure they were safe, and then maybe he'd come back and face the music. Later, through some serious investigation, he finds the location where the supposed traitors were hiding. He gets there, and the place is a bloodbath. Bodies everywhere. It's clear the government sent in a hit squad. He searches frantically and finds his wife's body. He holds her, completely broken. He quickly discovers that the operative who led the government's assassination squad is a guy named Guangzhou. And get this, Guangzhou is Dong Cheol's best friend. They joined the military together, fought side by side. Consumed by vengeance, Dong Cheol starts hunting for Guangzhou. He finds out that Guangzhou has fled to South Korea, posing as a defector. So, Dong Cheol follows him, crossing the border to South Korea, driven by nothing but the need for revenge. To survive, he ends up working as a rideshare driver. Day after day, Dong Cheol is out there grinding, driving all over South Korea, through busy city streets and down quiet back roads. He's a rideshare driver, hoping against hope that one day, just by chance, he'll pick up Guangzhou. 2 years go by, and nothing. Dong Cheol has no leads. Guangzhou has seemingly vanished off the face of the earth. But during this time, Dong Cheol meets Chairman Park, a big shot in the local agriculture industry. This guy is also a defector from North Korea. He came to South Korea with nothing and clawed his way to the top through sheer hard work and determination. But Chairman Park never forgets his homeland. He's always thinking about how he can help the people he left behind, but he's never had the opportunity. Chairman Park really takes a shine to Dong Cheol. It's not just because they're both defectors, but because Dong Cheol reminds him so much of his late son. So, Chairman Park takes Dong Cheol under his wing and makes him his personal driver. Chairman Park knows all about Dong Cheol's burning desire for revenge. He's tried to talk him out of it, telling him to let go of the hate and start a new life. But it's no use. Then one day, Dong Cheol suddenly asks Chairman Park if he can resign. He wants to dedicate all his time and energy to finding Guangzhou. Chairman Park sees the determination in his eyes and refuses. He tells Dong Cheol to wait until he gets back from his trip to North Korea. Apparently, Chairman Park is heading to North Korea in a couple of days to discuss some kind of business partnership with some important figures. On the drive home, they talk a lot. Chairman Park can see that Dong Cheol is dead set on leaving, and there's nothing he can do to stop him. So, when they get back to the house, he has his butler give Dong Cheol a severance package and a piece of paper. On that piece of paper is Guangzhou's address. Turns out, Chairman Park has been secretly investigating Guangzhou for a while now. He didn't say anything because he was hoping he could still convince Dong Cheol to let it go. But now, there's no point in keeping it a secret. Dong Cheol takes the paper and walks out of the house. But inside, he's a mess of conflicting emotions. He's incredibly grateful for everything Chairman Park has done for him. But just as Dong Cheol is about to leave, he notices that the security cameras in front of Chairman Park's house. Alarm bells start ringing in his head. Something is definitely wrong. He immediately turns around and heads back inside. Meanwhile, on the other side of the house, a man dressed in black has quietly snuck into the bedroom. He injects Chairman Park, who is sound asleep, with some kind of poison. Then, he reaches for Chairman Park's glasses, obviously trying to make it look like a natural death. Just then, Dong Cheol bursts into the room and sees what's happening. He springs into action. In just a few moves, he takes down the man in black. Chairman Park, who has just been poisoned, wakes up. He knows he doesn't have much time left. Chairman Park, with his last ounce of strength, shoves the glasses that the guy in black didn't manage to grab into Dong Cheol's hand. He gasps, "Bury it." And with that, he breathes his last. Dong Cheol quickly finds a hidden camera on the assassin's body. The people on the other end of the camera are freaked out by Dong Cheol's sudden appearance. Just then, they intercept a call from Chairman Park's house to the police. The leader of this group, a guy named Sukho, sends in a team disguised as cops to take down Dong Cheol and retrieve the glasses. But Dong Cheol sees right through their disguise. A brawl breaks out, and realizing he's outnumbered, Dong Cheol sees an opening and jumps out the window, making his escape. Sukho, watching from a distance, is furious. He's barely holding it together. Later that night, Sukho sneaks back into Chairman Park's house. He kills the entire staff, the butlers, everyone, and stages it to look like a mass shooting. Then, he uses this as an excuse to frame Dong Cheol. The next day, Sukho calls an emergency meeting to discuss the manhunt for Dong Cheol. Turns out, Sukho is the director of the National Security Office. Why he's doing all this, we'll get to that later. After investigating and finding out who Dong Cheol really is, Sukho realizes he's dealing with a serious threat. So, he reaches out to Colonel Min, a professional spy catcher from the military intelligence agency. This guy used to be a top operative, but now he's just a training instructor at the Sinbin training camp. The reason for his downfall is actually tied to Dong Cheol. It turns out that Colonel Min ran into Dong Cheol on a mission, and Dong Cheol, with his superhuman strength, killed all of Colonel Min's men. In the end, even Colonel Min was captured. He thought Dong Cheol was going to kill him, but after seeing a picture of Colonel Min's family in his wallet, Dong Cheol let him go. But after that, Colonel Min's career tanked. He lost the trust of the organization. The fact that Dong Cheol let Colonel Min go raised a lot of suspicions. But now, this is Colonel Min's chance to prove himself. So, he throws himself into the investigation. Sukho assigns Colonel Min an assistant named Joe. Coincidentally, Joe is Colonel Min's student. The two have a really good relationship. With Joe's help, Colonel Min starts digging and manages to find Dong Cheol's address. Meanwhile, Dong Cheol is on his way home to pack his things, carrying the glasses. On the way, he takes a closer look at the glasses and discovers a microfilm hidden in one of the lenses. So, he calls Secretary Choi, Chairman Park's secretary, and tells him about the glasses. However, before returning the glasses, he wants to take care of his own business first. In the middle of the conversation, Dong Cheol suddenly hears a radio frequency change in the background on the other end of the phone. He immediately realizes that Secretary Choi is being monitored. He quickly hangs up because, just like the assassins were able to intercept the call and impersonate cops the other night, that proves someone inside the police department is working against him. Just then, Dong Cheol spots several strange men outside his apartment. Sensing danger, he rushes out into the street, but finds even more suspicious people lurking around. He quickly jumps into the car of a female reporter nearby. This woman, named Jae-young-hee, is a tenacious journalist. She's been working on a documentary about the lives of North Korean defectors in South Korea. She's been following Dong Cheol around for ages, trying to get him to agree to be filmed, but he always refused. So, she's been forced to secretly film him from a distance. Dong Cheol jumps in the car and tells Jae-young-hee to drive. With her help, he manages to escape the encirclement. Afterwards, Dong Cheol quickly gets out of the car and disappears. He doesn't want to drag Jae-young-hee or anyone else into this mess. During his escape, Dong Cheol sees the news about Chairman Park being broadcast on a giant screen in the street. They're saying he's the murderer. This makes no sense to Dong Cheol. He starts searching for a public phone booth, planning to call the person in charge of the case to explain the situation. At the same time, Colonel Min and his team are inside Dong Cheol's apartment. They find a gun that is suspected to be the murder weapon. They immediately lift fingerprints from it and discover they match Dong Cheol's. Furthermore, they find a piece of paper with Guangzhou's name on it in the room. Colonel Min suspects that Guangzhou might be Dong Cheol's next target, so he orders Zhou to investigate. Meanwhile, Jae-young-hee, for helping Dong Cheol escape, is brought to the police station for questioning. But she genuinely doesn't know anything about Dong Cheol's whereabouts. Just then, Colonel Min unexpectedly receives a call from Dong Cheol. Dong Cheol also recognizes the voice on the other end, but doesn't say much. He just tells Colonel Min that the real killer of Chairman Park is someone else, and that these people wanted to steal the glasses. Furthermore, Chairman Park died from being injected with poison, not from gunshot wounds. Dong Cheol asks Colonel Min to examine the body closely. Then, he reveals his plans to go to Guangzhou's house, telling him to come there to collect his body and retrieve the glasses. He hangs up the phone. Colonel Min is skeptical of what Dong Cheol told him, but he still looks into Guangzhou's location and sends his men there. Sukho, after finding out that Dong Cheol is going after Guangzhou, immediately orders the assassins nearby to set up an ambush. He wants Dong Cheol dead and those glasses recovered at all costs. Meanwhile, Dong Cheol has secretly broken into Guangzhou's house. Seeing his enemy in front of him, he's consumed with rage, wanting to kill him instantly. But first, Dong Cheol has a question he needs answered. What did his wife say before she died? Guangzhou doesn't say a word. He just quietly grabs a pen and writes something on his hand. Your daughter is still alive. When Dong Cheol finds out that the daughter he's never met is still alive, he's overwhelmed with emotion. He immediately demands to know where his daughter is. Just then, the assassins outside launch their attack, and the house explodes into chaos. Dong Cheol is forced to hide under a sofa, afraid to show his face. Guangzhou uses the chaos to escape. Seeing this, Dong Cheol doesn't hesitate. He seizes the opportunity and gives chase. Colonel Min's men have surrounded the entire apartment building. Dong Cheol chases Guangzhou to a shopping mall, but the place is packed with people. In the end, Guangzhou still manages to get away. What Dong Cheol doesn't expect is that the assassins are also chasing him. Luckily, he has superhuman skills and can take down the assassins. By the time Colonel Min's men arrive at the scene, Dong Cheol has already disappeared. However, they find equipment from the National Security Office on the assassin, who is actually a North Korean defector. That night, Colonel Min finds Suk-ho at a restaurant. He questions Suk-ho about the assassins and what the deal is with the glasses. Suk-ho simply replies, "This is a national secret. You don't have the right to know." This makes Colonel Min furious. After leaving the restaurant, he feels like there might be something bigger going on. So, he orders Joe to urgently investigate Guangzhou, while he goes to the medical examiner to ask about Chairman Park's cause of death. The medical examiner seems hesitant, not wanting to say much, and insists that Chairman Park died from gunshot wounds. Seeing this, Colonel Min slips the medical examiner his business card and tells him that if there are any problems with this case, he will be held responsible. Soon after, Colonel Min goes to see Joe. After a period of urgent investigation, Joe has discovered that Dong Cheol was a political sacrifice, betrayed by his own country, and that Guangzhou killed his wife and then fled to South Korea. At this point, Colonel Min understands that Dong Cheol is chasing Guangzhou to avenge the deaths of his wife and daughter. As the investigation deepens, an even bigger secret is about to be revealed. It turns out that Suk-ho has been secretly recruiting North Korean defectors, like Guangzhou, to do his dirty work jobs that he can't be publicly associated with. In return, he gives these defectors new identities so they can settle down and live stable lives in South Korea. Joe doesn't just investigate Suk-ho. He also takes a look at Jaeyoung-hee. The results are surprising. Jaeyoung-hee is not as innocent as she seems. 2 years ago, she was a famous reporter. Then, she got inside information about Suk-ho's shady activities from a source and was about to expose him. But before she could, her superiors fired her. Her source was a pastor who had been helping defecting families, including Dong Cheol's wife and daughter. After Suk-ho found out the pastor had betrayed him, he revealed the pastor's location to the North Korean authorities. The pastor and the defectors were brutally murdered. So, in a way, Suk-ho is also Dong Cheol's enemy. After that horrific event, Jaeyoung-hee didn't give up. She knew Suk-ho was secretly gathering defectors to work for him. Plus, she had previously investigated Dong Cheol and knew he was incredibly skilled. She guessed that Suk-ho would try to recruit Dong Cheol as well. So, she pretended to be filming a documentary to get close to him, hoping to gather some evidence of Suk-ho's crimes. But Jaeyoung-hee miscalculated. Dong Cheol had no intention of joining Suk-ho's side. However, she did find out that Dong Cheol's wife and daughter had been killed and that he was seeking revenge. Just then, Colonel Min unexpectedly receives a call from Dong Cheol. He wants to trade the glasses for Guangzhou, but Colonel Min has no idea what's in the glasses and refuses the deal. Then, Dong Cheol threatens Colonel Min that if he doesn't bring Guangzhou to him, he will contact a reporter and expose the secret of the glasses. If that happens, the National Security Office will be in big trouble. After hanging up, Dong Cheol contacts Jaeyoung-hee and tells her he has a big story to tell her. As Jaeyoung-hee's car starts moving, Colonel Min, who has been keeping her under surveillance, immediately gets the report. He mobilizes all his forces to follow her. They head to a large shopping mall. Dong Cheol's counter-surveillance skills are incredible. He hides from a distance and, through his phone, directs Jaeyoung-hee, step by step, to escape the police pursuit. Then, he helps Jaeyoung-hee quickly drive away. But Dong Cheol underestimated Colonel Min, and his location was discovered. A tense chase begins through the crowded streets. Finally, with a stroke of luck, Dong Cheol successfully escapes the police encirclement. Colonel Min loses him once again. That night, Dong Cheol takes Jaeyoung-hee to an abandoned building to hide. He gets out Chairman Park's glasses. After soaking them in a special solution, he removes the microfilm. It's covered in dense numerical sequences, looking like the formula for something. He puts the film in a matchbox and hands it to Jae-young-hee, telling her everything that happened that night at Chairman Park's house, all on camera. Meanwhile, with Dong Cheol escaping again, Suk-ho's superiors are absolutely furious. They directly confront Colonel Min, berating him for being incompetent and failing to capture Dong Cheol time and time again. The superiors even suspect that Colonel Min is colluding with the enemy and forbid him from participating in the case. As things escalate, his superiors also reveal the secret of the glasses. 2 years ago, the National Security Office discovered that Chairman Park was building a secret research institute overseas, researching a new type of chemical weapon. This weapon is as destructive as several hydrogen bombs going off at the same time, and the formula for the chemical weapon is hidden in Chairman Park's glasses. When the National Security Office found out Chairman Park was going to visit North Korea, they immediately became alarmed, fearing the formula would fall into enemy hands. So, the National Security Office secretly arranged for Suk-ho to conduct surveillance. Although the National Security Office doesn't allow Colonel Min to participate in the case, as someone from the military intelligence agency, he still has the right to investigate North Korean operatives, so he doesn't give up on tracking down Dong Cheol. Soon after, the medical examiner, unable to take it anymore, demands to meet Colonel Min and tell him the truth. The real cause of Chairman Park's death was poisoning. Although Dong Cheol's fingerprints were on the murder weapon, the fingerprints on the bullet inside Chairman Park's body were not his. This means the real killer of Chairman Park is someone else. Colonel Min's first suspect is Suk-ho, who was monitoring the scene that night. So, he calls Joe and asks him to find a way to collect Suk-ho's fingerprints and get all his call records. Because of their mentor-student relationship, Joe finally agrees. And then, patrol officers unexpectedly find the car that Dong Cheol used to escape. With Colonel Min dismissed from the case, Suk-ho has complete control. As soon as he receives the news, he sends the police to arrest Dong Cheol, but in the shadows, he sends Gwang-jo and another defector ahead to Dong Cheol's hiding place to retrieve the formula. Joe overhears this and secretly informs Colonel Min of the situation. In an instant, 3 forces are heading towards Dong Cheol. At this moment, Dong Cheol is outside using a public phone to call the National Security Office. He finds that Suk-ho answers the phone. Suk-ho arrogantly says that Gwang-jo will be there to get the glasses immediately, telling him to just wait. Dong Cheol realizes something is wrong, throws down the phone, and rushes back to Jae-young-hee, but he's a step too late. Jae-young-hee has been knocked unconscious. Another defector has taken the matchbox with the microfilm. Gwang-jo is the only one left, ready to eliminate any witnesses. At the crucial moment, Dong Cheol appears. He dives in, tackling Gwang-jo to the ground. The pent-up hatred inside Dong Cheol is released completely in this moment. He throws vicious punches, unleashing relentless, deadly moves, determined to tear Gwang-jo apart today. However, Gwang-jo is no ordinary opponent. Facing Dong Cheol's attacks, he counters move for move. The two fight each other to a standstill. In the end, Dong Cheol's strength proves to be slightly superior, leaving Gwang-jo gasping for air. Dong Cheol continues to press him for the location of his daughter. At this point, Gwang-jo reveals what happened that day. It turns out that the government sent a total of 2 operatives to eliminate the traitors. When Gwang-jo saw Dong Cheol's wife and daughter, he couldn't bring himself to kill them and wanted to let them go. But the other operative disregarded everything and started frantically shooting the traitors in the house. Although Gwang-jo managed to pull out his gun and take out the other operative, all the traitors at the scene had already died. The only survivor was Dong Cheol's daughter. Later, she fled to South Korea and relied on Suk-ho. But Suk-ho sold Dong Cheol's daughter to human traffickers, so now he doesn't know where Dong Cheol's daughter is. He utters his last words and dies. Immediately after, Dong Cheol wakes Jae-young-hee up and tries to get her out of there, but the police have surrounded the place. Seeing the situation, Dong Cheol decisively jumps out of the window to make sure Jae-young-hee isn't discovered. He's left with no choice but to run and attract the police's attention. Despite his best efforts to evade the police encirclement, he's cornered near a river. Dong Cheol can only choose to jump into the river, thereby escaping danger. Meanwhile, just as Jae-young-hee is about to leave, Colonel Min arrives just in time. After finding out that the formula has been taken by the National Security Office, he knows it must be Suk-ho's doing again. Luckily, Jae-young-hee's camera has recorded the image of the formula. Colonel Min wants to take her to expose the truth. The two are preparing to go to a lab to see what the formula actually is. On the way, Colonel Min receives a call from Joe. By investigating Suk-ho's call records, Joe discovered that he has been in close contact with arms dealers in the Middle East recently. Furthermore, before Chairman Park's death, Suk-ho was also constantly contacting him. From this, it can be seen that after Suk-ho found out that Chairman Park had researched the weapon formula, he actively contacted him to buy it and sell it to the arms dealers, but was refused. Later, when the news of Chairman Park's visit to North Korea was announced, Suk-ho decided to take drastic action, sending people to steal the formula. But Dong Cheol appeared like an obstacle in the middle of the road, forcing him to fake the scene into a mass shooting, using the excuse to frame Dong Cheol. He then created false evidence to threaten the medical examiner into keeping quiet about the truth. All of this was orchestrated by Suk-ho. At this point, it's too late to turn back. Suk-ho follows the formula and tracks down the arms dealer. He is completely stunned when the dealer examines the goods and discovers that it's not a chemical weapon at all, but a super-grade buckwheat seed. As everyone knows, because North Korea's climate is not suitable for the growth of buckwheat, the total food production has never been able to increase, resulting in a large portion of the North Korean population not having enough to eat. Therefore, Chairman Park poured his efforts into researching this genetically modified buckwheat seed, which can significantly increase the yield and survival rate of buckwheat. To solve the problem of famine in North Korea, Suk-ho is stunned when he learns the truth. He spent so much effort to get something that turns out to be just a super seed. He immediately calls the source who leaked the information and curses him out. As for Colonel Min, after learning about this, he finally understands the meaning of Chairman Park's words. Bury it. Afterwards, the two prepare to expose Suk-ho's conspiracy. At this moment, Suk-ho sees that the situation is getting more and more serious, so he quickly organizes a press conference. He wants to use the fake gun evidence to frame Dong Cheol. Completely unexpectedly, Dong Cheol suddenly appears at the press conference, firing shots into the air, causing immediate chaos. Dong Cheol seizes the opportunity to take control of Suk-ho. The police quickly react, surrounding the entire National Security Office. Snipers also find sniper positions outside, waiting for the opportunity to act. Not long after, Colonel Min and Jiang-hee arrive at the scene. Jiang-hee and Jo are responsible for gathering the reporters who are still in shock and exposing Suk-ho's crimes. As for Colonel Min, he runs upstairs to assess the situation. Dong Cheol is fighting with the police while taking Suk-ho into his office. Even facing this situation, Suk-ho is still extremely arrogant. Dong Cheol asks him about the whereabouts of his daughter. Suk-ho remains silent because he knows that once he speaks, he will definitely not survive. Seeing this, Dong Cheol shoots him straight in the thigh. Suk-ho winces in pain, but still doesn't speak. Just then, one of Suk-ho's subordinates suddenly appears. The two sides exchange heavy fire. After running out of bullets, the two engage in hand-to-hand combat. Although the opponent's strength is not weak, Dong Cheol's moves are deadlier. The subordinate is quickly defeated. Then, he grabs Suk-ho by the neck, forcing him to reveal where his daughter is. Unexpectedly, Suk-ho takes the opportunity to break free and runs to the window. At this moment, dozens of snipers outside have their guns pointed into the room. As long as Dong Cheol takes a step forward and appears in the line of fire, he will die. And his gun is out of bullets, immediately putting him in a dilemma. Suk-ho, in this final moment, becomes even more arrogant. He taunts and provokes Dong Cheol, saying that he will never see his daughter again in this lifetime. Just then, Colonel Min arrives just in time. Seeing the utterly corrupt Suk-ho as a law enforcement officer, he can't knowingly break the law. So he steps forward and hands the gun in his hand to Dong Cheol. With the sound of a gunshot, Suk-ho is shot in the head. After that, Dong Cheol is arrested by Colonel Min and taken downstairs. Representatives from the National Security Office want to take Dong Cheol away, but Colonel Min refuses, insisting on taking him to the Military Intelligence Agency. On the way, Colonel Min and Dong Cheol have a long conversation. Finally, he throws a piece of paper onto the back seat. On it is the current address of Dong Cheol's daughter, which Colonel Min had Jo investigate. Then, he stops the car in front of a convenience store and goes out to buy cigarettes. When Colonel Min returns to the car, he finds that there is only one handcuff left in the car, but a smile appears on his lips. Perhaps Colonel Min will be punished for letting Dong Cheol escape. But that doesn't matter because he knows he did the right thing. With Jiang-hee's video being released, the government has taken the case very seriously and is conducting a thorough investigation. In the final scene, Dong Cheol, following the address provided by Colonel Min, braves the snow and ice to a remote field. He finds a group of women being forced to do hard labor by human traffickers. At this time, from a distance, the trafficker rings a bell, gathering everyone. Those who are working stand up one by one and walk to the back. In the crowd, a little girl sees Dong Cheol standing in the distance. At first, the little girl doesn't pay attention and continues walking to the back. But after taking a few steps, she turns her head to look at Dong Cheol. At this moment, perhaps it is the kinship of blood, the bond of flesh and blood, that makes the little girl feel that this man is her father. And in that brief moment of eye contact, Dong Cheol recognizes his daughter. He cannot hold back his tears and bursts into sobs. Then, he walks into the trafficker's base and gently closes the door behind him. The story ends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.